Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome. I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today was raised in Texas, but after graduating from Brown University, she taught in Egypt, Turkey, and Japan. She earned her MFA in creative writing from the University of Alabama and was awarded a teaching Fulbright to Syria. Her stories, essays, and reviews have appeared in the Barcelona Review, National Public Radio, and the LA Review of Books, to name a few. She writes bilingual books of short stories in English and Arabic and has a collection of stories about expatriate life. Currently, she's a senior lecturer at the American University in Cairo. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Gretchen McCullough. Gretchen, our opening question on Authors Over 50 is always, what took you so long to write your first book?
Well, I actually, it's not my exactly my first book, but I had two books published in Egypt with a small publisher, but it's my first novel that was published in the United States. I wrote a novel when I was in my 30s, when I was in the MFA program at University of Alabama, and that book was never published. And then after that, I lived in Syria, and then I went on and lived in Egypt. And I returned to the novel after working in the short form. So that's kind of my story. So I worked a lot. I wrote one novel, which was in the drawer, which was never published, but I think it was a good thing. I didn't think it was a good thing at the time, but I think it was a good thing. And then I practiced a lot, wrote a lot of essays and short stories, and then eventually returned to the novel.
Well, I think that's a common path for people, especially those of you who are working through MFAs to write something that either turns into their novel that they publish or that they put in that drawer. So I've heard that a lot. So I don't think that's uncommon. You know, it's not difficult looking at your bio to see that you have a grand case of wanderlust. Tell us a little bit about your adventures around the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one thing leads to another. My first teaching job was in the 80s in Cairo. And after that, I spent 2 years at a girls' school. I was working as a volunteer teacher. And then after that, I wanted to go to another place. So somebody from Cairo helped me find a job in Istanbul. And then after that, I wanted to earn some money. So I went to Japan and I was working at an international school. And then after that, I thought I want to go back and work on my writing. And I was about 30 and I went to University of Alabama. And I was recruited by Alan Wire, who's a Texas writer. He was teaching at the University of Alabama. After I finished that, I went, in my late 30s, I went to Syria. So that's kind of my career.
It's really fascinating to me. You know, every time I interview expats, I'm envious about how they just pick up and move around the world and think nothing of creating a life in a foreign country. I know there have to be some benefits and some challenges to all of that.
Oh, there's a lot of challenges, I think. And of course, there's benefits. I think as a writer, the benefits are that you develop a perspective on your own culture because you're far away. And you also, you're constantly learning because you're in a culture that's unfamiliar to you. So I think it keeps you on your toes. So I think there's a lot of benefits as well, but it's not easy because you have to constantly be flexible. So it keeps you flexible.
Well, you mentioned writing and publishing in the US this novel. How difficult is that? I know we can do everything on the internet now, but how did you proceed once you had this manuscript? Did you search for an agent, decide to use a hybrid, a small press, or did you self-publish?
In the beginning, I did things that almost everyone does. I worked my way through the lists and I went to a lot of conferences and I did meet agents. But funnily enough, I met my publisher through a contact from my Syrian days, somebody I knew, a professor that I knew from the Syrian Fulbright. He introduced me to my publisher, who is a small publisher out of Seattle. And he, sadly enough, Scott died 2 years ago. But anyway, he liked the book and he publishes mostly books about the Middle East, so it was a good fit.
What do you think is the most challenging part of your artistic process?
I think probably the most challenging is getting, especially if you're working on a novel, is acquiring or having huge blocks of time to work on a big project. That problem was solved when the university gave me several leaves in my career, like a semester off. So if you have a semester plus a summer, it gives you a big expanse of time to work on a big project.
That sounds heavenly to most of us. I love a writing retreat for that reason, but of course, they're only a week or two long, but you don't have the responsibilities of home life and taking the dogs out and feeding them. You can be in your own little bubble somewhere. And I really love that expanse of time.
Yeah, I think definitely if you're working on a novel, you need that expansive time. I think short stories and essays are a different story because literally because it's a little like gardening. You with a novel, as you know, you need to be there every day, even if just thinking about it, or it gives you you don't need to be under pressure.
Well, what was your inspiration for this novel? Not the one, it's not like the one you have in the drawer, is it?
No, it's not. uh, Part of this novel was the last novella of my short story collection, and that was inspired by 2001 uprising. Um, I had been in a writing retreat in Spain, and I came home on January 28th, which is was the uprising in Egypt, and there were no taxis and there was no way to get home from the airport, which was absolutely unheard of. Um, and so I wrote kind of about the crazy things that happened. Um, Lots of people disappeared from the city and they left their pets, and these are kind of the untold stories of the revolution that people didn't get on the TV, hear about in the TV. And then these two characters, they're on the run, and they go and they work in a girls' camp in Texas, and it gets crazy in the other kind of way.
That sounds great.
Well, I hope the novel is fun. I mean, the novel is a comedy.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the passage that you brought to share and then let us hear your tone and voice in the book?
I'm going to read a little passage from the men who are on the run, who are looking after people's pets. And one of the guys is his name is Gary, and he's looking after a diabetic cat that somebody has left. And meanwhile, a lot of things are happening in the square, and there's a lot of chaos in the city. So the two characters are on the run. Gary has been accused of being a cyber terrorist, even though he's not. And his friend is an Egyptian dancing teacher who's in trouble with the authorities. Just how long could we hole up here taking care of other people's pets? Were the secret police on our trail? At some point, I would have to give Scarlett a second shot of insulin. A dog outside was yelping. I remembered embracing Boriana when she was sobbing the day I had saved her from her violent husband, Dragomir. Her sobbing had almost sounded like yelping. You're safe now, I had said, embracing her. The building vibrated and shook. Running into the living room, I switched the channel to Al Jazeera. Breaking news. The local Carrefour superstore had been looted. A thug was carrying out a mannequin. The jewelry store and the mall had been stripped completely. Even the cases were gone. Had the whole city gone haywire? Al Jazeera showed a series of clips. Police stations were on fire across the country. Even more breaking news. 10,000 convicts were released from 3 prisons in Egypt. God, maybe we should have gotten on the plane. My hands were shaking, but I managed to put the insulin into Scarlett's shot. I chased her around the coffee table, up on the couch, off the couch, through the living room, and finally cornered her in the kitchen. During the week, we rationed the television, especially when we were eating. Images of looted grocery stores and banks, burned out cars, and bleeding people poisoned your appetite. Carolumbos often burst into the flat, breathless, to tell me what was happening in the street. Sayed stopped a minibus full of thugs with his shotgun. They had Molotov cocktails. They were going to throw them at our building. The old general made them break the bottles and told them they should be ashamed of themselves. Another night, Sayed shot out the tires of a motorcycle that tried to break through the barricaded street. The searing gas, tear gas, floated in from the square and seeped into the flat. Dousing my face under the shower head did not help. Pepsi worked well to neutralize the burning. A sonorous boo of 1,000,000 people carried from the square, less than 1 mile away, straight into the living room. Soon after, incensed chants started. We don't want you, or hey, hey, dead tree, we will be free. Another visual snapshot from the television. Reptilian vehicles and tanks crawled toward the street corners, surrounding the masses of people who had gathered inside the square. What are they going to do? You don't think they... I rested my head against the soft cushion of the couch. Carolumbus waved his hand. The army will always protect the people. This is the tradition of our country. So
Wow.
that was one section when they were trying to decide what to do.
Well, see, that's what I'm afraid of. If I move to a foreign country or even in my own country here, sometimes I wonder if all of that's going to happen to us.
Well, people have to fight for democracy. It doesn't just, it's not automatic. So, yeah, that's an excellent observation.
Yes. Well, we writers like to write. We don't always like to promote ourselves. And we find a lot of challenges because a lot of writers are introverts and don't want to put themselves out there. Have you found anything that's worked to promote your book or something that you tried that didn't work?
I think I hired some publicists who were helping me to promote the book, and also the Texas Literary List has been something, a website that has helped me promote the book in Texas. I think I agree with you. I think it is challenging, and I feel that it's even more challenging being abroad because I have to constantly be reaching out.
And the time differences can make a difference as well.
Absolutely. And sometimes the internet is very unstable. We tried to have a Zoom before, and a Zoom freezes, or you go off the internet, or you lose power. These are some of the challenges.
Do you have any other books in you?
I just finished a book about there's a swimming pool that was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps under the New Deal in the 1930s in West Texas called Wall Murray. And it's a huge, do you know the swimming pool?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a huge swimming pool, and I got very interested in these projects. And so I have just finished a book about a man camp at Balmoral, and I did a lot of research at Sul Ross University in Alpine.
Well, that's a beautiful place to do research. Do you complete your research before you begin writing, or do you do it as you go along?
Well, that's an interesting question because I had another idea for a book about Texas. I was interested in the mining town in West Texas called Terralingua, and I visited the place, and then I also went to the archives at Sul Ross, and the librarians were very helpful there and gave me lots of material, oral interviews, and I changed my idea. I thought, oh, I want to write about the CCC projects. So that was kind of the evolution of that. So yeah, I mean, I think doing research can change your ideas or change the direction of your project, and that's what happened to me.
It's funny that you mentioned Terlingua. My husband and I visited there one hot, dusty summer. And now we say things are bad, but you could be in Terlingua. And
Oh,
that's our joke. But we have many friends who adore it there and travel there several times a year. So, it's just all in your own perspective.
yeah. Do you think that people off the grid live in Terralingua?
That's what we think. We think
Yeah,
if you're running from the FBI or the CIA, you could live in
you could hang
Terlingua.
out there. Yeah. Well, I read Ken Ragsdale's book about Terralingua, and I thought that I wanted to write about that mining town. But then when I went there, I thought, a lot of writing is intuitive, and I thought, I can't write about this.
I know. I feel the
I don't want
same
to live with
way.
this for 5 years. Yeah.
No. But I can assure you that people move from north of Dallas there and just love it. So it's so funny the differences in where we want to live and how we want to conduct our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Different strokes for different folks. Yeah.
That's exactly right. What do you think writing success looks like to you personally?
Well, I don't think I'll get rich, but I would like to have more readers. That's my goal. And some of the things I've been doing, there's an interesting website called Shepherds that promotes reading, and I have, you write about different books that you like, and that will also promote your book. So that's like one of the initiatives. You're asking me about promotion. That's one of the initiatives that I've done recently, and I like the site because it's about promoting reading.
Well, I usually ask people what their families think about them becoming writers, but you've been kind of in the writing world for a long time now. But I wonder what your family thinks about your living all over the world. Do they get to come visit? Do you just have to come to the U.S. to visit?
My parents have visited me a couple times in Cairo, not recently, but they love Egypt. Um, they've been to Istanbul. I don't think they've been to Japan. Uh, yeah, I mean, they're travelers themselves. They love to travel. So, and I come back frequently. So I don't think it's quite so strange, maybe as it was in the beginning. Um, People used to say, well, you're always going to come back to Texas. And I mean, that's true in a way. I come to visit, but right now my home is in Egypt. I'm married to an Egyptian.
I've always wanted to go to Istanbul. I just think it's just so exotic.
Istanbul is a wonderful city. I love Turkey also. I love living in Turkey. And we also, my husband and I love going to Turkey on the coast in Izmir. We visit Turkey frequently. It's a beautiful place.
Where out of all of your travels would you like to return or maybe even live there?
Gosh, that's a wonderful question. I'm not sure. I can't think of someplace like off the top of my head.
Well, I've interviewed several expats and people who live all around the world, and they always think, well, maybe I'll go back there, but they don't. They land in one place and stay there. I had someone who landed in Japan, and he married a Japanese woman and still is there, but he longs for the places that he's been. And I just think, travel is such an education. You just can't possibly read in the books and understand it until you travel there.
Yeah, I mean, some experiences can't be duplicated by reading. I mean, I love reading, and reading is so important, but also having the experience yourself of being in a place. Uh, um, Many people think, even in Egypt, they see the pyramids, or they see some of the temples by the Nile. They see photographs, but then when you actually see it in person, it's so phenomenal. Photographs really can't duplicate the experience of witnessing a lot of things.
Yes.
Or experiencing a lot of things.
It's so true. Well, this has been a great visit with you here today, Gretchen. And as always, our last interview question is, our writers over 50 are quite unique. Do you have advice for writers 50 and above?
I would say a failure is sometimes not a failure if you learn from it. And that's sort of been what has happened to me. Even with my first novel, I gave it to somebody to look at when I came to Cairo, and they said, don't keep working this novel, put it in a drawer and work on other things and move forward. So I did, and then I eventually returned to the novel. So I think don't give up. Yeah.
That's wise advice.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we're too close to our work, and after we've gone over it so many times, I don't even see my own mistakes. It takes a professional editor to point those out to me. And one was just almost blasphemy, living in the South as I did. We had y'all misspelled. So it really takes another set of eyes to be able to look over that. And so we're just happy that you're on U.S. soil today and can be with us. And we wish you safe passage back to your home, your chosen land now. And we're happy to now call you one of our authors over 50.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday, when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend. And check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's DAILY, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing. And remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.